live. So, genau.
Hello everybody, here Luciano speaking. I hope you can see me. So very happy to be here in this this occasion and talk to you and illustrate you a little bit more about GFT and also the topics that we are doing. So as I said, my name is Luciano Rizza. I'm a managing director here at GFT Switzerland and also head of consulting. So a little bit about me, and then probably I will go into the company. About me, so many years ago, I had a degree in computer science in Italy. So after that degree, I thought I want to make an international experience, and this is where I landed to Zurich. By that time, Credit Suisse was my first employer, and I joined the IT unit of Credit Suisse, more in payments and payment processing area. After that, then I moved to the neighborhood, so to UBS, where I took over a team in the private banking space, more in the investment management, to be a little bit more precise, where really the client portfolios are being managed at the beginning from the IT side, but then I moved more to the business side and start specializing in big transformation programs, international big transformation programs, but it's really about transforming the bank from the inside in order to address various challenges. Today we call this digitalization, by this time not yet. After that, I moved then to Accenture. It's a big consulting company where I really continued to do this transformation programs in various areas, in payments, but also there was a core banking transformation, which is really changing a bank really end to end. This means most of the capabilities that a bank has, like mortgages, payments, private banking, and other capabilities of a bank, basically to be moved from one technology to the other. This was really a very interesting part and milestone in my career. And after that experience, I realized that basically I was always working in big corporates, or very big corporates, in banking and in consulting. And then I decided to try something else and to move a little bit more into smaller environments. Smaller means now at GFT. This is also what was the driver why I joined GFT. And GFT is a 5,500 employees company, which is compared to the 500,000 of Accenture, can be considered small. In relation to many other companies that we see here in Switzerland with just a few hundred employees, this can be considered big. I would say from my side, this is a really big size. It's really the right size. For me, it's now one year at the company, and I really do not regret the step I did. I can probably then tell you more or answer your questions. Now, here's basically where we are. In my role, as I said, I'm responsible for Switzerland as managing director and also head of consulting. Here, we are basically trying to help our clients in what generally people call digital journey or digitalization. Is exactly what we do from many perspectives. We support our clients, which are big extent banks. We support really them to transform into their digital journey, and this from, as I said, from various perspectives. This can go, for example, from cost optimization programs, how to use technology in order to make processes more efficient and more automatized or optimized. Think about, for example, a typical mortgage and loans areas where many banks have a lot of manual processes involved in order to approve or to evaluate the whole requests from the client. What we do is just automatize them and making more efficient based on technology. Other areas are again changing many processes of the bank, for example, changing old technologies into new technologies, and in order to enable banks then to be more efficient again, or and this is what we are seeing more and more nowadays, is not only about efficiency, but it's very much about getting closer to the client needs. This is a driver that we are seeing it more and more today, and the push from this comes really also from the whole fintech and the startups, which are very innovative. Think about Revolut, for example, digital bank. I mean, banks which were born really digital. They are engaging the client very much, and the clients tend to like it very much. For only Switzerland, for example, Revolut has 250,000 clients. So the clients want to also to respond to these drivers, and what we see is also the use of technology in order to understand the client better, to engage with the client in a better way. So this is moving from efficiency only to real client value. And this is a little bit the link that probably drives me to the topic of today, that I thought is quite interesting and also very actual today, is basically cloud. Cloud in banking and in Switzerland. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. Cloud and banking were two words which just a couple of years ago was really difficult to match together. Switzerland, as you know, still, I mean, bank secrecy as we used to know in the past is not really existing anymore, but data privacy, client data privacy for banks is still a very big differentiator worldwide. So banks in Switzerland really are very much aware and very careful about handling the data of their clients. And a few years ago, or even a few months ago, it was still very much, banks were very much conservative in that area. So we're not really keen to look into cloud as opportunity for driving the business. This is being changed. This is changing, and I can tell you also more about the reasons for that. The main reason, one of the reasons, is definitely that cloud providers have been evolved in very good way. I mean, they are very advanced now, especially the big providers like Google, Amazon, and Microsoft, which are the three main providers worldwide. They have increased, for example, their capabilities, and they've improved very much in terms of security. So it was very convincing from this side. Another driver, especially for banks in Switzerland, is that they start seeing what are the benefits that cloud is giving to banks outside of Switzerland. And in various terms that I can tell you more now. So the Swiss banks are looking at the advantages internationally, and they start realizing that they're losing a little bit of space in that area because other banks are taking advantage of cloud technology. The third aspect which is making things change in Switzerland is also that the Swiss Banking Association, which is basically the association of all banks in Switzerland, very influential in the banks, where all banks are represented there. As in March this year, has released a paper where basically is appreciating all the advantages of cloud also for banks. So it's not a taboo anymore. That's why cloud is really taking place in Switzerland. This was also the reason why I thought I'd talk about this today. Now, being a little bit more concrete, why should banks in Switzerland move to cloud? There are various reasons. First of all, it's basically what cloud allows is moving or contributing to solve one of the biggest challenges that banks, especially big banks or just established banks, have today: costs and pressure on margins. So currently, banks with their architecture based on premises, they are paying for infrastructure and architecture even if they don't use it. So if they are paying for servers, for data centers, for infrastructure, they just buy it, and then they have the ownership. They need to write them off, and this costs a lot. What cloud allows is very much to scale on the base of the real needs of the bank. So they basically virtualize nothing else than infrastructure of the client, and in a very scalable and fast way, they can scale up or scale down infrastructure in terms, for example, of computing power, in terms of memory, in terms of infrastructure, as I said, as much as is required. And the banks generally pay this only when they use it. So if they are using computer power, they are paying for it. In the night, for example, when they don't use very much, then they are not paying for it. So it's the costs benefits is very significant. Although what we are seeing now is other components which are driving banks internationally and now also in Switzerland, enabling them to move to the cloud. And actually, the one I would like to emphasize, and it wasn't really very clear a few months ago even, is basically what the cloud offers in terms of capabilities which are already there. I mean, you can consider the cloud like a central space, which is secure, is scalable, and is managed. And on that, once you have this, you can, in that space, you can basically ramp up a certain set of capabilities and products which are very useful. I'm thinking about, for example, the artificial intelligence capabilities or data analytics capabilities. I mean, nowadays, in order to understand their clients much better, in order to understand the opportunities of business for the future, and not only, many times you need to work a lot with data. You need to analyze this data in an intelligent way. So you need also a set of algorithms, a set of products which allow you to get the best out of this data. Just to make an example, many times also with the use of artificial intelligence. Typically, these cloud providers have developed a set of capabilities, for example, artificial intelligence or data analytics, which are basically there for free. I would say for free, or included in the price of the cloud. So if you move to a certain cloud, you are basically getting with it access to a set of capabilities and advantages that otherwise you would not have into your own premises. Or if you want to have, you need basically to ramp up on your own. And this is not only a cost question to do it, it's also a time question. So imagine, for example, banks, big banks, in order to ramp up or in order to implement like advanced data analytics algorithms on their infrastructure, many times they would just use more than 1 year or 2 years basically to ramp them up. Instead, in the cloud, they have this already. So it's not all about costs, it's also about the set of opportunities that are there, which are basically pushing banks to do it. I can also tell you we are working with a client here in Switzerland also to evaluate possible cloud opportunities because the client wants, for example, to access the possibility of tokenizing, of going into tokenization assets. So how to use, for example, blockchain and these technologies to help them tokenize assets in the future. And these are all set of capabilities that if you want to implement on your own, there's a big amount of money involved, and also quite a long time. So also the time to market is very important. This is, for example, one practical example of clients now in Switzerland also just exploring possibilities to go to the cloud. Just resuming, we really believe that cloud also for banks is going to be a very big trend, and as here at GFT we are specialized in that. We have more than 400 people worldwide certified in various cloud solutions. We are addressing this in Switzerland quite how to say, in a very decided way, and actually we see a lot of interest from our clients. I hope I was not too long. I don't know in terms of time how good we are, but this would be basically from my side. Happy to answer now questions. So I will start reading some questions from your side. So how do you, the first is, how do you see digitalization transforming banks? Okay, so this is, yes, I mean, digitalization means a lot of things. As I was mentioning before, banks actually have started digitalizing years ago. To be honest, compared to the other industries, I'm thinking, for example, about retail business, they are some years in delay because, for example, they didn't have the pressure to do it in terms of costs optimization, for example. But digitalization is bringing a lot of changes to banks. It's changing also the way banks work in the past. It's changing in the future. Sorry, it's changing also the kind of work that the people will be doing in the banks. I mean, the employee of the banks. We are moving very much, as I said. If on one side is digitalizing, I mean, via a digital solution in order to decrease costs. On the other side, banks will be investing much more in order to understand their client much better. And here where, for example, the data analytics are coming to the picture, artificial intelligence is coming to the picture in order to take more opportunities. And on the other side, in order to be much closer to the banks. For example, bank in a pocket, to have the very good mobile applications which are supporting banks to compete also in some areas with the new challenger banks, which from the mobile perspective are many times even more advanced. I see the next one. Do you install custom clouds for banks or do you use cloud providers? It's actually a very good question because there are different kinds of clouds. It depends. I mean, the trend that we are seeing now in Switzerland is that the interest for public clouds is increasing a lot, especially for the second reason that I was explaining, in order to access a series of capabilities which otherwise the banks should build on their own. So the interest for public cloud is increasing, and we see it there actually the main growth. Nevertheless, also in the past, we have seen banks exploring more private cloud solutions, but this was more like cost driven. So there is still that, but we definitely see the growth in the public cloud. The next question, do you consult as well on data privacy and security for digital banking? Yes and no. I mean, what we do is definitely we support banks not only from the technical or technological perspective. We support banks also from the regulatory perspective, or we have a regulatory practice here at GFT where we explain, or also we basically implement regulatory programs, among other things, also data privacy or data regulations, for example, like GDPR. Many of you may probably know that. From the data security perspective, when it goes into encryption and this kind of capabilities, we decided explicitly not to go in that space because we wanted to do the things that we are best at, and probably that is not one of the things we are best at. This is the first. And the second, when you go into the security space, then you need special skills, which very many times is also difficult to have. And the third is also because the legal, how to say, aspects and the consequences of this need to be really taken care of. So there are specialized companies who are probably doing better than we do. So we decided not to go into the security space. Another one, can you tell us about one digital journey project you found particularly interesting? Okay, as I could say many of them. Probably one of the most interesting is what we are doing now. Actually, we are supporting a big German bank into an end-to-end core banking transformation. So basically, they are going from a current legacy solution based on very old technology and quite inefficient technology. We are supporting them into moving into a new platform, really from completely new platform. And when we are saying a new platform, many people tend to think that this is just an IT, so to say, project or an IT thing. I would tell you that actually is probably less than 50% an IT thing. It's basically a lot about people and transforming the bank from the inside, also in terms of processes. So the people, also, I mean, how the process will be done, we are more automatized, are more, how to say, visually appealing, for example, web-based. The kind of roles and responsibilities that you need are different from those which are currently in place. And all these kind of things has the change management component is also very important, and because every time you are changing something, especially in big organization, you need to pull the people with you. And this is many times, I mean, it's not easy at all, but at the same time, it's very, very interesting and very, very motivating, because this is really transforming the way the bank do business. And when you see the benefits out of it and the client is happy, it's a particularly satisfying sensation. Another one, can you tell us about one digital? Oh no, this is I think that's the same as before. How much experience do I need to join GFT as a consultant? Well, it depends what you need to do. I think, I mean, if you are now out of university, this is definitely it's a good way to join GFT. We are very happy to hire people from university, from good universities like ETH. So at the beginning, it's not particular experience required, but definitely we also hire people and experienced people, which are coming from other companies, or and also we are happy to do that. So it's we are basically doing both. If you join us from the university, it's particularly good because we have also quite good senior colleagues on one side, which who can support you to grow, and definitely you have the possibility to grow here. And on the other side, we have also internal training programs to support people grow and be successful in our company. So this question is: the IT in banks as old-fashioned as everyone is saying? Okay, this is a good question. Well, it is a fact that banks are not front runners for with regard to technology and with regard to digitalization to IT in general. There are some areas where banks have still, so to say, some needs. I'm thinking, for example, about the whole mainframe part. Probably not many of you know, but banks are still hiring or are still looking for people who know COBOL or PL1, which are programming languages which are now 40 plus years old. So they still have a lot of legacy in there, but it's changing fast. It's changing fast, and again, this is given by among other things, from the challenges which are coming from outside. On one side, the whole fintech ecosystem, revolutionary one, but even more from the big tech giants. Like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Alibaba, and all these technology giants who want to come closer and closer also to the banking business. And they have definitely a set of technology capabilities which is much bigger. So banks are catching up, and this, of course, is a good news for companies like GFT, which are supporting banks to do it. Good. So I'm not sure how much I am on time. Probably I will give still 5 to 10 minutes to go into your questions. Oh, this is very interesting. Do you think blockchain will be a reality for banks? Okay, this is again a question which needs to be contextualized. Actually, I can tell you that nowadays blockchain is already reality for banks. There are many banks which in some areas are already using blockchain solutions. I'm thinking, for example, to the trade finance, where on the base of blockchain they can, manage the process in a much more effective way. If this means that basically in the end blockchain will make banks redundant, or that all banks will basically be driving their business only or on blockchain, or even that blockchain will replace banks, I'm not really somebody who is really believing that. I know that there are people who are a little bit more, ambitious of that, or they think that there will be more. I don't think. But blockchain is one technology, is a very interesting technology, and all the whole distributed ledger technology to enhance many areas or some areas of the banking. But in the end, still, I think that people will need, in some areas, an intermediary, like a bank, to do some kind of business, especially when you need to trust somebody. At the end, it's always good to have an entity which you can see, which you can sue, even in the worst case, to handle your money. So this is basically my answer. I hope it was good enough. Another one is their resistance against digitalization from some within banks. Yes, we see it. It's again about change. Especially in the last, I would say, 10 years, and even more in the last 5 years, where the digital, acceleration is really gaining I mean, it's just increasing every year. Cloud, for example, will be also an accelerator for that. Once basically you will have on the cloud, you will have a lot of capabilities, even more than today, where banks can basically that banks can use. Typically, we see the resistance when it comes to people who are not used to that, or they cannot cope, or they don't want to cope with this change. Sometimes they are a little bit also afraid of losing the job. In some areas, technology automatizes some processes which are today done by human being. And in that area, we definitely see a resistance. And especially when I was talking about change management into big transformations, this is definitely a very important component that we are addressing. It's there, yes. What we see, and actually we try with the clients to do it, also to identify what are all the opportunities for people who are doing a current job today, and to do another job tomorrow. So it's not the equation that digital technologies or technologies basically ensuring the fact that people to be dismissed. This is not true. Of course, the people need to have a certain readiness to change as well, and this is not always the case. Okay, I will take probably the last two questions. Then the first is, are you involved in the open banking initiative? Very glad to hear this question because actually GFT is, especially in Europe, is a leader in open banking. We have been supporting the top, so to say, banks which are, according to Gartner, are considered basically the top player in open banking. I'm thinking about, for example, BBVA or Santander, two Spanish banks. By the way, Spanish banks, in terms of digitalization, they are very advanced, among the most advanced in Europe. And we are really front runners into that. So we are helping Spanish banks definitely, but also in UK. Now we started also in Switzerland with an open banking project or open API project. So definitely we are doing this not only from the PSD2 perspective, which is the regulation, the EU regulation, which is somehow compelling or pushing banks to implement the open banking. We are seeing more and more real business cases where banks, beyond the regulation, wants to open themselves to create new business cases. For example, in the corporate business, where typically big corporations need to access their, so to say, their balances or their positions worldwide. Typically, the banks, like for example, Santander is enabling this via open APIs, and this actually is a very interesting business case. So not only PSD2, but a lot of other use cases are basically coming up, and that motivating banks to move in the open banking space. And the GFT, and this for us, of course, the good news, is really a front runner in open banking, and we are helping banks doing it now also in Switzerland, which we are quite glad of that. Last question I take is, how does employee development work at GFT? Is there training? Well, I was mentioning already something before. Yes, we have training programs, but I can tell you more. I mean, if you consider companies like GFT compared to other kind of companies which have also other kind of assets, I can tell you, for example, production companies, that they have like plants, or they have factories, or they have other kind of assets which are contributing to their success. If you see companies like GFT, we have basically only brains. We have only people. So then people is basically the biggest assets we have, or the only assets we have. And we are very aware of that, and we take these assets in a very serious way. So we believe that we are developing them and letting them grow. I would say in many cases also better than our competitors do, because and this is also enabled by the size. I think that's where the size comes into the picture. I've been working for many years also big consulting companies, as I said, and there you are basically, I don't say that you are a number among many, but of course your visibility or your importance for the company, if you are in a company of 500,000 people, probably is not the same importance when you are part of a company of 5,500 people. And especially here in Switzerland, where we are a relatively small, so to say, location, it's even more important. So to answer that, we have tailored training programs to the people, depending on their, how to say, on their, I wouldn't say wishes, I would say more the way they want to go, how they want really to develop. And we we make almost individual business case for each person on a multi-year base, so that we enable people to develop in the direction they believe they want to go, and also where we believe from GFT perspective is the best for the company. So we do it almost on an individual base, and this is quite unique, I would say. So we are quite proud of our development at GFT. Good. Having said that, yes, I would now stop the streaming. I take this opportunity really to thank all of you for participating, also for the very interesting questions. I hope you could gain some more insight on GFT and also what we are doing. And if you are interested in evaluating the opportunity to work with us or to have a chat with us, feel free to do it. Go on our GFT page, gft.com. You will be directed then to our Swiss page, and you can just contact us. We will be more than happy to engage with you and explain you more. And who knows that some of you will be part then of the team, and we will be very glad of it. Thank you again very much, and I wish you a nice evening. Bye, everybody.